Hello, everybody. Welcome. How you doing? How's it going? Hope you're having a great one. Welcome to another adventure in history. Whoa. How's it going, everybody? Lots of people in the chat already. Hello, hello. Let's see who is around. Tropical, good to see you. Welcome in, as always. Abel Bacon, great username. Welcome. Hope you're having a good one. Guten Abend. Good to see you, KP. What's up, Cave? Good to see you. You just realized that my banner photo on the channel page is a recreation sorta of the wheat field scene from Gladiator. It is. It is a wheat field scene from Gladiator. And what is potentially even more interesting is that if you know the fictional story of Maximus, Russell Crowe's character, in Gladiator, he would have almost certainly been in the Roman legions for quite some time prior to the death of Marcus Aurelius, and might have even fought in a battle with Trajan. And the building that is in the background of that particular scene is the cenotaph of Trajan. So it was a big stone that was put on the place where Trajan, the emperor, died, and they built sort of a temple around it. So if you know the whole deep lore of the whole gobbledygook stuff, there is some potential theoretical joke to be made that if Maximus were a real person, he could have walked through that same wheat field to that cenotaph and recreated the scene for himself. So, yeah. Kush it real good. Yeah, we already know where we're going. You love some Kush? Not that kind, but perhaps. What's up, Vipers? Good to see you. Lumpy, good to see you. Late Bloomer with the Raging Elmo. That's also awesome. Any Mark I know, I call Marcus Aurelio. Hey, I mean, it's a great, great title. So I hope everybody is doing well. For those of you that might not know me, hello, my name is Shane. I am a college teacher by trade and a historian by choice. I also do teach history in college, but that's kind of secondary to the fact that I love this stuff and it's all up in my brain all the time. And the show is Adventures in History. Tonight we are doing a special viewer request show. We do these usually every other Tuesday, but things don't always go exactly that way. For example, previous viewer request stream was actually History of Middle Earth, which is something that we do every 100 followers. So, you know. But usually every other Tuesday. Now, next Tuesday is going to actually be a little bit different because next Tuesday we're going to do a regular Thursday stream. So on Thursdays we are going through history in chronological order. And we started all the way back at the beginnings of humankind, and we have made it to the 700s, well, technically the 600s, or the 7th century of the current era. And we're going to do a show on this Thursday night, same history time, same history channel, but next Tuesday we'll do a special episode because I will not be in my domicile on the following Thursday because I will be attending DragonCon and hanging out with Cave Geek, which I am very much looking forward to. It will be a good time. Laughs will be had. Laughs will be had. Good times will be had. Steaks will be eaten. Nerd details and facts will be exchanged. Not Dragon Lance, Dragon Con. Dragon Con in Atlanta. And if you are in the Atlanta region or are going to drive down, if you can pick one day, pick Saturday, because on Saturday I will be appearing in a Tolkien panel at DragonCon talking about the upcoming animated movie War of the Rohirrim, which takes place just a few decades prior to the stuff that we would know from, well, not decades, it's a couple centuries. I don't know why I said decades. I guess because I'm counting like the beginning of The Hobbit, which is almost 60 years before the act. Anyway, I'm getting timelines all thrown up in my head, and not everybody knows how to calculate timelines, and in Middle Earth history, and not everybody knows that to get the Shire reckoning of the year, you take the Third Age time and subtract 1600 from it, and I'm just a giant freaking nerd. But if you want to come down and see me, come on and see me and hang out with Cave and give him all your money. And there's going to be a lot of other cool people there, so you can see a lot of other cool people. So if you've hung around on Twitch, like Cryomera and Daria Axanova, and there's so many other people. Allie's going to be there, and Justin Gerard's going to be there. Stephen Jarian's going to be there. Just tons of folks that you might know from hanging around either this channel or the Twitch crowd in general. So lots of cool people. Good night. How's it going, Raveland? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Yes, I do get to meet Cryomera for real. Yep. Yeah, Daria's been going through a rough transitionary patch. She had some health issues, had some stuff going on with her wrist and finger and thumb because of overworking, and had to do some transition because of COVID, but there we go. What's up, Foggage? Good to see you. Have I said hello to everybody? Green Herring, good to see you, my friend. Who doesn't know that? Who doesn't know how to calculate Shire Reckoning? Right? They're all going to be in different buildings. Yeah, I know. I'm going to have to walk around and do some hiking. I will see everybody eventually. Or at least the hope is. Maybe I can schedule some time to meet them after the stuff. You slept in too early after work. Now you're awake. Well, that's cool, because you get to hang out and talk history with us. And this is going to be an interesting stream, because it's about some people that are not really usually on the broad spectrum historical World Civ tour. And that means I'm really excited about talking about them. If they don't usually get covered in like with the Western Civ class that most people in the West end up taking, that's the kind of stuff I get really excited about. So this is, again, a viewer request stream. This was voted on by the viewers like you. If you were on the stream when this got voted on and this was your choice, congratulations. It is your time. Is this the Red Sea? This is the Red Sea. I can zoom out just a little bit. I had it specifically zoomed in here because this particular curve of the Nile is going to be very important for our discussion tonight, but zooming out and get a bit of perspective is a great idea. So we're going to be talking about Africa today, specifically this region here of what is upriver of the Nile. Let's all remember that the Nile flows from the highlands in the central part of Africa, and it flows north. So downriver for the Nile is actually north, and upriver is south. So it's kind of confusing, and you got to keep your mind working that right way. And if you really want me to, I can just flip the world upside down like this, and then it'll all flow the correct way, right? But yes, this is the Red Sea here. Here, let me spin the earth back around so that people don't freak out. Yes, this is the Red Sea, Indian Ocean, Persian Gulf, Mediterranean. We'll be talking about these just a little bit, kind of in general across the course of the stream. Am I in Australia now? It's only in Australia if you want it to be in Australia, right? What's up, Noger? Good to see you. Aussie, right? Yeah, Australia's down here. I'd love to go to Australia. My wife and I were actually talking about that not just a couple of days ago. There's a lot of cool stuff in Australia. So many really cool, well, I mean, they would be Stone Age for Australia, but Aboriginal Stone Age creations. There's a lot of really interesting rock formations that have been studied a lot more recently that were originally considered or originally thought to just be like random rock formations, but now have shown after some analysis and things like, you know, satellite imagery and drone imagery to actually be arranged. And seeing some of that stuff would be really, really cool. I'd love to go hang out in Australia for some while. They do love Vegemite, which is something that I cannot abide. I know that there's a proper way to eat it, but the only proper way to eat Vegemite is to not eat Vegemite, in my opinion. I know that's a hot take, and I love all of my Australian friends, but that's not for me. So the river you're talking about, Vipers, is Niles. See, that's plural. This is just the Nile. The River Fraser is much more of a northern European river. and its head is usually found up its butt. But that's just a bad joke about the show Frasier, which I actually kind of liked. It just was kind of a joke. You're not a fan of Vegemite, and I had it properly. Well, there we go. The Nile at that distance looks like a serpent. It does indeed. It does indeed. Eyes and all. Correct. And I will eat haggis like it's going out of style. I've had haggis. I'm not a fan. I mean, I've had lots of organ meats, and I don't really necessarily have anything against organ meats, but the inclusion of stomach in those organ meats always gets me a little bit off. Stomach is, it's one of those things where you have to chew it too much, and I don't want to. I just don't want to. Amanda Palmer has a song called Vegemite, the Black Death. Mondongo, stomach, yeah. Stomach is just not my thing. I'm not a fan of the tripe. But I don't have problems with other organ meats. I don't like lung. I've only ever had a lung. Or I didn't even have a whole lung. I had like one bite of lung. And no. I was a Puerto Rican in another life. I mean, I just love food. I just love food. As Neil Gaiman's ex-wife, I'm sure she has. Ooh, there we go. Lung is very dependent on how you cook it. It was boiled, and what was really kind of horrible about it is that the way that it was boiled was it still had the windpipe and trachea attached to it, and the person cooking it threw it in the pot and draped the trachea out of the pot while the lungs were boiling, and it just kept like spewing out mucosal stuff, and it just I should not have watched it being cooked. That was the problem, and in my brain I just knew that it wasn't going to be good. Just ugh. Everybody knows that the proper way to eat lung is in a sausage. Now, if I had it in a sausage and it was better prepared and in smaller pieces. Okay, apologies. Let's talk about Meroe. All right, so first off, what is up with this whole kingdom in the first place? Where is it? Why is it? When was it? Etc. So let's talk a little bit about the kingdom of Meroe just to begin with, to get ourselves on the same page. So, first off, the kingdom itself is not actually called Meroe. So when we talk about the queens of Meroe, etc., we're specifically talking about the queens of a specific city. The kingdom, or the larger kingdom, was called the Kingdom of Kush. And this is not actually one contiguous kingdom. There were actually several in this region that stretched all the way back to the Iron Age and were sort of frequent enemies of the Egyptians. And especially when we get to this sort of middle portion of the river right around in here, of course this is the Nile that sort of runs in this way. This region right around in here was pretty hotly contested between the empire or kingdom of Egypt and the kingdom of Kush. And there are a couple of different periods over the course of the kingdom of Kush, and it really is sort of drawn down to the specific dynasties that were ruling, or what's particularly important for us, where the capital was. So we are going to mostly focus tonight on what's called the Meroitic period, not erotic, so calm down any of you that were expecting salacious details of the past. This is Meroitic. The Meroitic period is the period of time that we're going to be talking about in Kush. And this particularly starts around the 6th century BC. The city itself has settlements going as far back into the 700s. The city of Meroe does. So 7th century BC and beyond. But this is going to become an ever more important city, and it is situated basically right about here. No, Merotic. Let me type it for us. The Merotic period. Let me kick that down to a new line. Like that. Like that. You feel pointed out. No. No. No need to apologize. We come for the yuck and the stabby and the is this anything to do with that creepy French jerk from The Matrix? That's the Merovingian, but I see the JK. Almost like different strains of Kush. Yes, I know what we're talking about. I know that Kush is another word for marijuana, but that's not what we're talking about either. Neurotic. Got it. Got it. Merotic period. All right. So by the time we get to around the I don't know, this it's so let me pause before I finish this sentence and interject a whole other discussion. Our timeline of this period is very sketchy. It's highly speculative, and because there weren't a lot of lengthy documents that were either produced or survived from this particular period of time, we have to go mostly on things like inscriptions at temples, dedicatory stela. You know, I go beat you up, so I pull a big rock up to the field where I beat you up and I carve into it, in the year of my reign, so-and-so, I beat the crap out of you. So stela and dedicatory inscriptions and pictures with the person's name are really going to be some of our best pieces of evidence for this period. So it's hard to say with any given like specific year range when stuff happened. I can usually say around this time or during this time or in this span, but I would caution anybody that decides to study more on this. If you run into people saying this is the exact year that these people reigned, you should probably be careful. Now, if it's later on in the 300s or the 350s or so AD or past, probably about the 200 mark, it gets a little bit more conclusive, but that's not because they're making more records. It's because people outside of them are attacking them. But we'll get to all of that. Anyway, the timeline is kind of fuzzy, and it's kind of hard to tell. Wasn't it an independent kingdom? It was. It was an independent kingdom. And the Kingdom of Kush had its own government, and we'll be talking specifically here about the regents or the dynasts, in some cases, of this particular kingdom. And at one time, it was big enough to even hit that empire state. The Kushites conquered large portions of Egypt at various points in time. They expanded up the Nile further into Central Africa, and even out to the east, out towards the Red Sea or towards the Indian Ocean, to establish some trade out that way. Now, it's not always going to be imperial sized. Usually it is going to be fairly comfortably a kingdom. And mostly if we look at the map here, if I were to sort of draw a large oval shape right about here, this is...
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Tuna. Thank you, sir, so much. I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But thank you, either way. It is very much appreciated. And it's good to see you, Tuna. And I hope that you're having a good one. So they were empire state building? Yes, they were. They were in an empire state of mind. All right. Do the Kush people have direct descendants today? Okay, so this is where we have to be very careful. Are there people today that claim to be direct political or ethnic or DNA descendants of the Kushite people? Yes, there are. Are there people that are directly descended from those people? Yes, most likely. Are all of the people that claim descendants from the Kushites actually descended from the Kushites? Probably not. This particular area had a lot of overlapping and a lot of ethnic movement going on. This particular region itself is already fairly ethnically diverse, and over the course of the period of time from what we're talking here, which is 2600 years ago until today, there have been a lot of different ethnic groups that have moved into or moved through this area. And that has brought with it, of course, lots of genetic admixture. So, are there people that are related to these ancient people in a line? Almost certainly. I would not feel bad about saying that at all. But there are a lot of people who use this particular history as a kind of a rallying cry, as a nationalistic totem, if you will, because especially when and the modern day country, by the way, is the country of Sudan. Let me show the modern borders here. So this country right here is the modern country of Sudan, and when it first broke away from European imperial rule, it was all of this country. South Sudan actually just recently broke away. It's not even 20 years old yet as a country. But when Sudan was sort of pushing away from England, when it was becoming more independent, especially through the post-World War II era, one of the things that became very important for the people of Sudan was to create a national identity, one that they could use to establish themselves all the way back in time, and show that they were rightfully independent and should not be controlled by external forces, etc. And the period that we're talking about tonight of Kush is going to be one of the areas that a lot of those people look at for national pride. And I'm not trying to take that away from anybody, but with anything that comes with nationalism, especially what we might call ardent nationalism, there's going to be a lot of co-opting. And the reason I have tried my best to hedge the answer to this question very carefully is to express how that can sometimes lead to differentiations between fact and spirit, if that makes any sense, if you get what I'm saying. So right, and that's another reason why I threw the modern borders up, because when we talk about the Nile River, a lot of people just go, Egypt. This is all in Egypt. This is all in Egypt. And ancient Egypt is, or was, larger than modern Egypt is. Ancient Egypt very frequently stretched all the way down to the sort of bend back up in the Nile. Depending on the particular central power structure of the ancient Egyptian kingdoms, they might have controlled much further up. During several very powerful moments of the Egyptian world, especially under the 18th dynasty, under the guy, I don't know if you all know all of the pharaohs, but one of the big powerful pharaohs in the 18th dynasty was this guy named Thutmose III. He actually came down and conquered this whole region and added it to the larger Egyptian empire. So there is definitely a connection between Egypt and Kush. There's no way to accurately give a full picture of either of those civilizations without heavily referencing the other. Now, it is fair to say that historically speaking, the Egyptians are going to be a organized civilization with big cities and bureaucracies and stuff like that significantly sooner than the Kushite kingdom, but it doesn't take a long time for those to sort of be cohabitants in the region. Let's see. So you're saying that anyone who says their great-great-grandma was a Cherokee princess is probably delusional. Well, considering the Cherokee didn't have nobility, probably so. Kushites, can we call them Kushies? I think I'll allow you to call them what you want to, but you're probably going to get corrected by somebody like the Cossacks. You read that only half the people claiming to be one are actually from Cossack lineages. Yes, and that's partially because the term Cossack started off as a much more ethnic ideology than it was, and it kind of became a military position, and a lot of people became like the ethnic identity Cossack became synonymous with a particular mounted light cavalry person. So if you ended up in a Cossack brigade, you might have what we might call like a military lineage that goes back to being in a Cossack brigade. But were you originally going back to the Cossack ethnic group, that's a different story, right? But that's a great parallel there, Lumpy. Wouldn't everyone likely just be descended from people 2,000 years ago, just like every figure from... if we look at... And we're chasing big rabbits here, but that's okay. If we look at earliest common ancestors, you can call them what you want to. There's a whole bunch of fancy schmancy names for this stuff. They're both very, very old. I think the earliest common male relative that we have is something like 106 or 160. My numbers start transposing 1,000 years old. And the oldest female relative that we have is a little bit older than that. I think it's like 120 something thousand. And you're welcome to check me on those numbers, because I have not looked at that in about a year, and I am not fresh on new developments that have been made, particularly in back tracing common ancestors. But no, if we go back 2,000 years, we're not all going to be related to the same people. The genetic diversity of humanity, even 2,000 years ago, would be like still pretty broad. You think you're ready for... okay, so if we're talking about like individual regional groups, maybe. I don't think we have... we can't say that we are all related to somebody from further back than we have DNA. So it would be... And I just realized that as I was saying 100,000 years old. I was like, we can't tell that because we don't have DNA from that far back. I don't know. It's a long way back there. But it's both of those people are from Africa. We all came from basically this region right around in here. Unless you're a proponent of the Western African Savannah theory, and then we're all from right over here, which has some value. And the new one is a South African origin theory that says we all basically came from right down here, but that one's kind of new and still sort of speculative. I think it's more mathematically inevitability based on population. Yeah, our population has grown a lot more faster in modern day than it has in the past. Like, it took us into the 1800s to hit 1 billion people, and now we're at almost 8. So, there we go. Anyway, let's turn this off. Let's look at where we're talking about. And this little stretch of the Nile River right here is going to be really important to us, because this is where our ancient cities were, and beneficially for us, a lot of that stuff is still there. So we're going to actually look at some of that stuff as we get a little bit closer to some of these people. Okay, so we've got the Kingdom of Kush. We've got the Meroitic period, where we're talking specifically about the people living in Meroe. And this is going to be made the capital of the Kushite kingdom by about the 6th century BCE. So this is in the 500s. And it's going to be used as the governmental center of this region all the way until the kingdom collapses in the 350s of the current era. They do have their own independent language. For a while, they do use hieroglyphic script from Egypt, but they then developed their own as people in Egypt shifted to what's called Demotic, and they stopped using hieroglyphics. There was a specifically Kushite version of Demotic script that they ended up using. Did you just go outside? Yes, you were wet. You are wet. Oh, and of course, you're going to shake all of your wetness all over here. The puppy has come. You want to see the puppy? She is moist. I don't want to get you up here because you are wet. But I see your little waggly butt. Yes, I see your butt waggling. Oh my gosh. You need to go dry off. You need to go see Brittany. Get her to dry you off. That dog is a mess. I bring the refreshment of the sky's blessing. Right? Oh my goodness. She is a mess. Okay, so they have their own independent written language. They do have their own independent spoken language. They're going to have a religion that is theirs, but their religion borrows very, very heavily from the Egyptians. A lot of the big, powerful, and important gods in the Egyptian pantheon are also going to be popular, specifically Isis and Amun. Amun is specifically going to be one of the big ones. There's some really, really big temples to Amun that are going to be in Meroe itself and in the larger Kushite kingdom, especially at places like Napata and Naka, which I have just done something and I don't understand what I've done, and that's unfortunate because now I can't see chat anymore. Where did chat go? Oh, I don't want you over there. I want you over here. There we go. Now what happened with this? There we go. Okay, there we go. Let's see. I need to stretch this back out. I have clicked buttons. If ancient Egyptians invented the internet, would we speak in emojis, leaving the text to the youth? Ha, probably not. Was it a Semitic root? It was not. It was not a Semitic root, but that's a fair question. Amun, yes, the king, the god Amun, as in Shazam / ISIS hour, or where Archer works. Isis, as in the goddess Isis. But it's interesting that you mention archers, or archer, because one of the things that this region is particularly known for is the skill of their archers. So much so that if we go back prior to the Kushite kingdom, the original what we might call Neolithic culture that grew up in this region was referred to as the kingdom of Punt. And the thought is that Punt was their word for bow. So this was the region of the bow people, or the archers. So that ancestry had that the ancestry has people who are Semitic relating to denoting family Arabic certain languages, Phoenician, Akkadian, consists of the main subgroup of Afro-Asiatic family. There we go. Excelente. Okay, so let's actually talk about what we're talking about. And we're talking tonight again about these particular queens of Meroe, and we need to talk about this title, Kantake. So if we are looking in the actual language that these people would have been speaking, the title that is used by these individuals who are going to be queens of Meroe is the title Kantake. And specifically what this title means is mother of the next ruler. Now, as you might expect, this is going to cause some levels of ambiguity, right? Mother of the next ruler. So does that mean woman married to the queen? I'm sorry, woman married to the king? Right? Or does that mean the mother of the king? And this can be different, right? So if we shift our perspective here, is this used for only a queen mother, or what we might call a queen regent, or is this used for anybody that's queen, right? So we have one Kantake, and she has a son. And then that son marries a noble woman who becomes then the queen. Does that mean the Kantake is no longer the queen mother and becomes the wife of the younger king? Or does mom slash stepmom, not stepmom, mom slash mom-in-law gets to hold that title for the rest of her life? And the answer is we don't know. And it's okay to say that we don't know, because it's better than making some garbage up, right? Were the child ever ruled like the Kentucky kid? Yes, but here's the question. If we have a regnal year of a king, but in all of his pictures where we see this king, his mother also shows up as Kantake, is he ruling by himself, or are they co-ruling? And this is an interesting and fair question to ask, because in most ancient cultures, when you see an image of the king, you're not going to get mom with him, right? So if mom is showing up on the walls of the temple, if mom's name is showing up in the dedicatory inscriptions, if mom is even showing up in the statues with you, are you ruling by yourself? And we don't know. There are a few times, and I do mean a few times, where we can hypothesize with a pretty high degree of certainty that some of these women were ruling by themselves, because there was a separate word for king. So in some inscriptions, we have a person's name, like Shanaktakete. And we will see Shanaktakete Kandake. And then the word for king. So she was mother of the next ruler and king. And in this particular situation, it's pretty fair to say these are ruling queens who were doing so with their own power, under their own volition, and not in concert with any sort of male. But where those two overlap is really only a handful. And unfortunately, we don't know a lot about these particular individuals. I'm going to share with you, hopefully enough to kind of get you excited about it and give you a place to start. But it's fair to say, and I've said this before, a lot of this is pretty speculative, because we have images that don't have a lot of text that go along with them, and everybody knows that when we start interpreting art, it can get a little uncertain. Let's just be real about it, right? We can say, well, clearly in this particular image, this woman has put herself on the throne. She is being attended by goddesses and gods, so this is clearly her being ruling, and we can say, yeah, that's pretty true. But other times we've got a woman in a statue, and that's all we got. So what can you really say about that? Well, it gets kind of shaky. But I will note, when we take this word Kantake and we put it into Latin, we end up with Candace. And if you know anybody named Candace, which is a woman's name, historically going all the way back, in the Latin, medieval period, you get people named Candace. Candace is just a Latinized version of the title Kantake. So if you know anybody named Candace, they are named after these ruling women of Meroe. And you thought that was an English name, right? It's not. It's actually a Latinized version of this particular title, like Khaleesi. No, it's not Khaleesi. Queens of the Nile. Yes, they are Queens of the Nile. Exactly. That's not a royal decree. It was my shopping list, right? I don't know about Queens of the Nile, but the Queen of the Niles was Maris. Yeah, there we go. I'm catching all of the Frasier jokes tonight. I'm catching all of them, by the way. You actually do know a Candace. I teach Candaces all the time.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. Cave is Spartacus. Thank you so much, my friend. Welcome back to being Spartacus. I greatly appreciate the support as always. If you're not already following Cave Geek, you got to go give this guy a follow because he's cool people. Who else we got in the chat? We've got Lumpy Dragon Potato, as always, Minecraft Extraordinaire. You got to go check out Lumpy. I saw other people. Who else am I missing? Who we got in here that I need to be shouting out? I felt like... Oh, we got the Nogre in the chat. There we go. Yep. We got Nogre in the chat, who is going to teach you philosophy and make you a better thinker because he's smart like that. So go follow these cool people because they're cool people. Oh, look! You got dried. Do you want to come up here now? You want to come and see me? The puppy is back. Hey, come on. Come over here. Where are you going? You're going under the table? I can't see you under the table. Do you want to come up over here? Is this the side that you prefer to come up on? Well, come here. Come here. Come on. Come on. Oh, yes. There's the puppy who has been dried. Oh, yes. You are dry now. Oh, thank you for the sugars. It's a sweet puppy. Oh, yes. What are you doing? What? I don't know what you want. You just come to say hello? That's a good girl. You want your booty scratched? She's a mess. Alright, well, I'm trying to stream. You shake? Oh, yes, that's a good shake. Alright. Yes, her butt. Alright. Who are some of these people? Where's my button? There we go. So some of these people have fairly long names, and instead of me trying to type them all out, I'm just going to copy and paste them. So our first queen of Meroe that we can identify as being most likely an independent ruler is this lady whose name is, where do I start? Shanaktakete. Shanaktakete. Which is kind of hard to rhyme with things. I was trying to come up with a title for tonight's stream, and I like using stuff that rhymes and trying to put stuff in. And Brittany was like, well, just use some of the titles or the names of the queens. And I was like, what rhymes with Shanaktakete? Not a lot. That's your favorite Sepultura song. I don't even know who that is. So there we go. All right. So if we want to know what she looks like, we actually have pretty neat stuff. This is an inscription of hers that was on a pretty big temple. And what's interesting in this particular scene is that we've got all of these individual people that appear to be conducting business and showing up to give her things or show her things. We've got people that are showing up with baskets of wheat and fruit, and we've got animals that have been tied up, ready for sacrifice here. We've got cuts of meat. We've got all sorts of cool stuff, and all of this is being brought and presented to a whole bunch of deities. Specifically deities that you might be familiar with, like this guy right here, who was Osiris, if you know who Osiris was. But here in the middle, we have Shanaktakete. Now, I know that this is not necessarily the best likeness. Let's remember that this particular thing that we're looking at is about 2,200 years old, and it had been outside for a lot of that period, so it's not necessarily the best preserved thing that we have. But we do see here Shanaktakete, who's wearing a crown that looks a lot like crowns that you might see in Egypt. Also wearing here robes of office and carrying symbols of office. We've got the club, and we've got some lamps. We're going to offer some guidance here. Also, behind we have the goddess Isis here, who is sort of sheltering Shanaktakete here with the wings. It is speculated that this figure here might have been her son. But note, she's sitting in front and he's sitting behind her. So it's pretty clear also because she is significantly larger in frame here than anybody else, including Isis. Isis is only about half of her size. And that's a pretty strong giveaway that this person is in charge, right? This person is the ruler. And all of these people are just here to give her cool stuff. So, interesting and fascinating stuff. Now, what do we know about her? Again, we know that she's the first ruling queen who shows up with the title Kentake and the actual title king. So we can reasonably suspect that she was a solo ruler. Images like this lend credence to that, where she shows up in royal garb. But beyond that, we don't really know too terribly much about her. The dates of her reign are very highly speculative, and they shift up or down about 20 years on either end. About 170 to about 150 BCE is a fair guess, but will we ever be able to know exactly when she ruled? Probably not. So there we go. She looks great for her age. I think so too. You left and then you came back, so at some point you were halfway there. Ahaha, Bon Jovi. There we go. Just heard something fall in my kitchen. As I'm alone right now, that was fairly disturbing. Yeah, since I'm working on a model, you had your X-Acto knife at the ready. I shall stab at thee. You referenced pop music. I was never pretty enough to listen to mainstream pop music. Lumpy, that's not true. You're a handsome fellow, and a catch for anybody. So, what else can we say about Queen Shanaktakete? Well, not too terribly much. And I know, it sucks. Like, we've got this really cool image of her. We know that she was involved in constructing this particular temple. It's at a city called Naka, which is not in very good shape anymore, which is why big portions of the buildings are in museums now. And that's kind of all that we got, except for some kind of cool stuff. So let's take a bit of a zoom in here. And I will take us to a specific spot down here, and we'll look at some pyramids. Because it turns out, I don't think she's actually there. I think she's in the west group, which is over here. No. Well, you want to keep me going there, but I don't think that's where she is. Oh, no, this is it. Okay. Yeah, so if we go to street level view here, we are now in the Sudan, in the desert. And if we look around, there are lots of pyramids here. This was the reason I was confused is because there are 3 different groups of these pyramids, and this particular group is not the main group, and I was thinking that it was bringing me to the main group, because that if you search for what I searched for, I would suspect it would bring you to the main group. But anyway, there are lots of pyramids here, and if we zoom in on this one right here, which I apparently can't do because it won't let me. That's very odd. Can I zoom in here? Zoom? It's not going to let me zoom. Anyway, this pyramid right here, this one that's kind of fallen down, is the pyramid of Shanaktakete. That's a hard word. It is a hard word. You once heard something fall when you were in bed, then it fell again and again and again. A mouse jumped into my garbage pail but couldn't jump out. Oof. That's a tricky one. Which aliens built these? None of them. Am I stalking a woman on Google Earth? What's up, David? If by stalking you mean looking at the place where she was buried 2,000 years ago, absolutely. What's up, David? You think Moon Knight fought poorly? I think Moon Knight fought poorly. Okay, that. There's some typo there that I'm trying to work out. If you're saying that Moon Knight didn't do a good job portraying Egyptian mythology, you are absolutely correct. It utterly butchered Egyptian mythology. It was very poorly thought out. It was very much poorly thought out. Shane, I found this on the internet. Pretty much, yeah. I love digging around on the internet. It's fun stuff. It always impresses me how people built these pyramids back then without modern cranes. Right? It's lots of legwork, and it's pretty heavy building stuff. Now, let's be clear here. The pyramids that we're looking at are not on the size of the Great Pyramids of Giza. These are significantly smaller. They're about between 6 and 10 meters on a side, so they're not the big, huge pyramids like at Giza. These would be much smaller, and that doesn't mean that they're not cool. I just don't want you to look at this and go, holy crap. But, fun fact, there are more extant pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt right now. And nobody thinks of Sudan when you think of pyramids. And I was lamenting the other day that I would really love to go to Sudan and see all these pyramids. But, unfortunately, it's just not going to make it. So let me see if I can find the finger quote big stuff. I know that yeah, okay, so here's like the big complex over here, and we can actually go down to Street View and kind of walk around these on the ground level. So these particular pyramids are from kind of the height of the period, and most of these are going to be from a few hundred years after Shanakta Kete would have ruled. But you can see here the scale, right? They're not nearly as big as the ones that you would see in Egypt. But they're still really friggin' cool. I would absolutely love to go to see these. If you're wondering how to get here, they are about 4 hours north of the capital city, Khartoum. So you would fly into Khartoum, and then they actually do have buses that you can get that will take you out here, or you can hire a guide to drive you out here if you really want to go. So what exactly is wrong with your car? It keeps making a sound like the first queen of Meroe. So not the first queen, just the first Kandake. Cranes wouldn't fit those blocks. They have weak little bird bones. Aren't there? Yes, and KP just said that. One bedroom in slight need of renovation, $3,000 a month, right? That's pretty high rent for this region. I would think that for $3,000 a month in Sudan, you could probably hire enough bodyguards to make me feel comfortable to go see all of this stuff. And that's not a slight against Meroe. I'm sorry, the modern-day country of Sudan. It's just a slight against the fact that they have unfortunately large populations of people that are active terrorists. And while most of the stuff that you would probably want to go see if you were doing tourist stuff is very tightly controlled by the government because they do make money off of tourism, I don't know if I would go there right now. It's heating up over there, and it's in, unfortunately, pretty bad shape. And I do say unfortunately because I would really love to go there. It's just not in the cards, I don't think. Active terrorists. Yeah, they've got several terrorist groups that are So if we throw the borders back up here, this whole southern border is active terrorist activity going on. This western border over here this is the country Chad. There are constant terrorist activities going on over here. There's a big group called Al-Shabaab. There are splinter groups of ISIS. There are all sorts of individual terror cells that are, they're causing terror. That's kind of what they do, right? And I know what you're talking about, and we didn't all live through that, so we don't all have the same experience. I know that might not be such a big deal for some people who lived through that situation where they have been targeted or seen or witnessed active terrorism, but it's weird how the country Chad isn't the Chad of countries. Well, the country Chad was named Chad for about 100 years before Chad became Chad. So, there we go. Mexico does have a lot of pyramids, and I would totally love to go there too. A lot of those are easier to get to. All right, so let's talk about Amani Reyes. Now, this is actually a person that we know quite a bit about, comparatively speaking. So this statue here is Queen Amani Reyes. And we know that she was ruling from about 40 to about 10. So this, by the way, that's 40 to 10 BCE. We're still decreasing in number at this point. And it was during her particular reign that a certain Roman army was going to start conquering Egypt. This, of course, being the army of Caesar Augustus. And there's going to be a war between Rome and Kush, specifically because Rome was just kind of thinking, we got Egypt, why not the rest of it? And it was a pretty long war for the size disparity here. The Kingdom of Kush was substantially smaller than the Roman Empire at that point, which controlled almost all of the Mediterranean coastline. So it's pretty remarkable that the Kushites held out as long as they did, and in fact, Rome had to sort of give up the conquest ideology. So they ended up sitting down, and there's this great story of Augustus sort of conducting direct negotiations with Amani Reyes, and she is almost certainly going to be the most famous of all of the queens of Meroe, because we get this sort of idea that she was a pretty savvy ruler, was capable of leading her people rather effectively, and basically talked a really, really good treaty out of Augustus. So when they met, the terms of the peace treaty between them basically stated that Rome was going to leave Meroe alone for the next 300 years. Now, that would have been way outside of both of these people's lifetimes, but that's a pretty nice concession. Like, Rome, you can't take us over. We've proven that we're pretty good fighters. Can we just be friends and agree to be friends for the next 3 centuries? And Augustus was like, you know what? That actually sounds okay. And so that was the deal. Now, this is also going to be a pretty important time because the Roman world at that point was expanding, and we do get references to these things in Roman documents. Now, as always, let's remember, if we are one culture talking about another culture, that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to get it all right. We're not necessarily going to understand that the right way. But any information about these rulers is beneficial, even if it is biased, because even if it is biased, it's still giving us something to go on when we have very, very little to go on otherwise. And it's almost certain that when the Roman historian / geographer Strabo was writing his big works about the known world, when he referred to the Candace of Kush, he was almost certainly talking about Amani Reyes. And what's interesting that we get from these stories is that just a little bit about her as a person, she either was missing an eye or she was blind in one eye. And this was remarked on because she was apparently still pretty good at, being effective. And that was seen as a really kind of a weird thing for the Romans, because usually speaking, their especially their priesthood, right? If you're going to be a priest in the Roman world, you couldn't have physical abnormalities, right? You couldn't have birth defects. If you ended up getting really sick and losing something like an eye, or you went to battle and got your arm chopped off, you were not expected to conduct yourself in public in the same way. So the fact that she was ruling, and we know that there was at least some tenuous relationship between the ruling title in Meroe and linked to the gods, very potentially similar to the way that the pharaoh was the conduit in Egypt between the gods and the people, that their ruler would be missing an eye or would be blind in an eye. That was just sort of a weird thing. Like, dude, she's kicking butt and is really powerful down there in Kush, and they still let her rule even though she's only got one good eye. That's kind of an offhand, like, holy crap, can you believe that thing? I'm guessing they forgot about Hannibal. So Hannibal was a Carthaginian. So when he was beating the crap out of them, that was just bad because he was from Carthage. And the Carthaginians could do whatever they wanted to because, according to the Romans, they were just horrible people in the first place. They're more than half Phoenician anyway. I thought you heard the Kush somewhere. They are a faction in Civ 6. Amanitore is the ruler. There we go. So Amanitore is a later ruler that we'll talk about here in just a second. She's about, well, she's later. And that's really all I could say. I can't say how much later because, again, the timeline gets real messed up here. And we just don't know. So, Amani Renas. Now. Nope. Typed correctly. Amani Shaketo. Okay. Here's our next ruler. And we do have another picture of her as well. This is her here in the middle. Carrying the symbols of office, wearing the robes of office, with a wicked cool crown. That's a pretty neat headdress right there. And we can hypothesize about the identity of the seated god here, given the shape of the head prior to it being chipped away. This could maybe be Horus, or this could maybe be Sekhmet. We don't really know. It would make sense, though, if it was Horus, considering they're on the throne, with the Horus mythology basically being the idea that, of course, all of the pharaohs were descended from Horus, who was the first pharaoh. What's up, Paulden? Good to see you. So, we've got Amani Shaketo here. This particular panel is in Munich. Now, we really don't know too much about her. And there's a reason for that. And mostly, it's not a very good reason. Because back in the early to mid 1800s, there was an Italian guy that made his way down to this particular region of Sudan, found all these pyramids, and decided, I bet there's treasure in there. And commenced to basically destroying Amani Shaketo's tomb. And it now looks like this. Now, this clearly here has been restored, but this used to come up a lot more. And pretty basically what he and his crew did was literally start at the top of the pyramid and just start chucking bricks down until he got to her tomb, and then destroyed the tomb itself to the point where we really can't figure out what's going on. And then the stuff that's left ended up getting sent back to museums in Europe and ended up in Germany. Now, luckily, the relief that I just showed you survived, and we do know her name, but we don't know what else was in here that might have given us hints about her rule or her life. But we do know that this piece was also in her tomb. So this is a very detailed and ornate gold bracelet, and it's got the lapis lazuli inlay here, which was a very popular blue gemstone that comes from Central Africa. And this is a pretty beautiful piece that is still preserved in a museum today. So this particular one, if we're being our best guess, Amani Sheketho probably ruled from about 10 BC to maybe 1 or 2 or so of the current era. We're not, again, we really just don't know. We don't have a lot of data about her. She probably did not rule too terribly long because we don't have any big temples dedicated to her or that were dedicated by her. But we do have cool stuff like this that we can kind of show off. Nothing like some good old-fashioned tomb raiding, unfortunately. Yeah. Mario finally found the princess. Oh, his name was Giuseppe, by the way. Weren't many people from many countries who destroyed the pyramids of Sudan, like people from England, Germany? Yeah, there was a lot of that stuff going on, especially as archaeology became the hobby of rich people who wanted to decorate their, big fancy houses with ancient stuff, which is honestly where, unfortunately, a lot of stuff ended up. That was middle and late 1800s. It wasn't really until the very late 1800s and early 1900s that countries started going, whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't just take whatever the heck you want and go back with it. We need to establish rules. We need to establish historical precedent for these things. We need to form the discipline of archaeology. If you want to know more about that, we actually did archaeology, like the history of archaeology, as a viewer request stream way back when. Blue was a rare curler and very expensive at that time. Absolutely, Raveland. You are absolutely correct with that. So that particular bracelet that I just showed you would have been an incredibly luxurious item. This would have been something that was fit for a queen, right? Now, I would love to tell you more about Amani Sheketho, and I can't. There is other stuff out there. It is highly speculative. I don't trust in it, and I try my best not to go too far off into the speculation realm. Now, earlier, our friend Lumpy, who is a big fan of Civilization, as I am as well, mentioned Amani Torre. What's up, Uncle Bill? Good to see you, my friend. Amani Torre, who is she? Well, we were lucky. We have an image of her as well. So here she is on the end of a sacrificial table. This is sort of like the end of the table, and if you imagine this being the top and the side here being basically the legs of the table, and it would have gone out further in this direction and had another end to it. You sent me a screenshot of Civ 6 Amani Torre. Oh, I'm guessing this is on Discord. Let me pop open Discord and we'll go check it out. Wow. Yeah, that's taking liberties, I would say. That's taking liberties. Okie dokie. Well, That's what she looked like in time. So maybe they tried to turn that into a three-dimensional object, and there we go. No, she's not dancing. She is offering her hands up as a way to offer sacrifice. So she's kind of like raising hands to the gods, right? So this table would have been used for sacrificial purposes. So this is Amanitore. Now, what's up with her, and why does she get to be the leader of the Kushites in the Civ game? Well, she was a big, powerful ruler, and she gets the most credit for basically rebuilding the kingdom of Meroe after the war that happened with Rome. So, Amani Reynas brought peace, and then we have maybe this really short reign of Amani Shaketo, but it was really under Amanitore that things got back to kind of like their peak operating fitness level. She is going to be instrumental in rebuilding this big temple of Amun at a place called Jebel Barkal, which is a pretty big and impressive structure. She is going to have either renovation works or restoration works at other big temples like Naka, which was one of their big religious centers, and Napata, which used to be the capital, which was still a very important industrial and commercial center for these people. She is going to be an expanding ruler. She pushed the boundaries of the kingdom, especially down the river. Up the river, rather. Disco is a sacrifice. Maybe so. You see, bras hadn't been invented. She was probably wearing some sort of wrapping robe. But let's remember that as a ruling queen, you don't want to hide the fact that you're a woman. And this is something that you should display, right? So maybe she was topless. I don't think so. I'm willing to bet that they wanted to have more voluptuous civ leaders to be more inclusive. And that's a fair assessment, and I can see how that would be something to kind of aim for. What you expect, Civ to be made, designed, developed, and produced by multicultural teams of various religious... Are you quoting Ubisoft to me, Kilted Preacher? I see what you're doing there. You're making me think that it's Assassin's Creed. You're making me think that it's old Ubisoft. Ubisoft plays free and loose with history like few other gaming groups have. Especially for a group of people that claim to be following the history. Oh boy, do they take liberties. So many liberties. So many. Anyway, speaking of enemies, let's talk about Amanitore and expanding. So, at one of her temples, on the facade, we have this really great image of her here. And if we look at what's going on in this image, we have Amanitore here in center, and she is raising up above her head a sword, like, I'ma kill you. And then down here, she is holding a knot, right? And I know that we're missing the block here, which would have been basically the hand here. But if we look at what's just below it, these are heads. She is holding a big collection of human heads. And below that, you have all of these people that are being bound up because she is laying waste to her enemies. Because she is a great warrior queen and she's beating the junk out of people. This is a pretty cool image here. Pretty cool stuff for Amanitore. So when I said it makes sense why she would be the leader during Civilization, if you've ever played a Civ game, the goal is basically to take over the world. She's a good person to pick because she's beating the junk out of people, right? There's not much of a chance that your playable character happens to be BFFs with literally all of the most important historical figures in that area, even ones that are arguably didn't have active lives in the same place at the same time. Yeah. Next stream, History of the Secret Assassins Guild. I can't tell you that. I have to kill you. She chose violence. She did choose violence. The Bloody Red Queen, indeed. Warrior Queen. History ends here. Herstory begins now, indeed. So she did the decapitations. That's what's implied. If you're holding a whole bunch of heads in one hand and a sword in another hand, it's implied that you did the chopping, right? Do you think these ruined areas are ever strategically damaged? Yes, Vipers. That's actually a great point. Now, let me be careful. Do I think that particular image was purposefully damaged? I don't know. But do I think that certain things are strategically damaged? Absolutely. And I can give you specific examples of strategic damage. When one culture takes over another area and I don't like your gods, we have multiple examples of we're going to go recarve your statue into our god. That happens multiple times. For example, when Mehmet II takes over Constantinople and gets into Hagia Sophia, one of the things that they do, or that they did at the time, was go through Hagia Sophia and purposely chip away a lot of the crosses because they were Muslim. And they didn't like the idea of Christian crosses being all over this big church because they were going to turn it into a mosque. Strategic damage. I don't know if everybody has been around since the beginning, but way back, like in the single-digit episodes of Adventures in History, when we were talking about Egyptian religion, and I mentioned Akhenaten. There's a particular ruler named Akhenaten in the New Kingdom, and he had this kind of weird ideology of we're all going to go out in the middle of the desert and we're going to worship the image of the solar disk, and he's actually Tutankhamun, King Tut. He's his father, and when Akhenaten died, the priesthood of the main gods in Egypt, so the priesthood in Thebes and priesthood in Memphis, basically tried to purposefully eliminate Akhenaten from the record. We don't have many images of him. We have a lot of images of people without heads, and then the little cartouche that holds the name of the pharaoh, that's all carved out too, because it was strategically eliminated. They tried to basically say, this guy blasphemed against the gods, he doesn't deserve to be remembered in history. So yes, strategic damage is absolutely a historical thing. What a gruesome person. I mean, if you're the queen of a country and you have enemies on your border, one of the ways to make sure that you are in charge is to beat the enemies up and bring security to your people. I'm not trying to say it's a cool thing to do. I'm just saying, like, it makes logical sense if you're trying to portray yourself as a powerful figure, right? You've been here since before the beginning. Don't cite the old episodes to me, witch. By the way, wild background, but what are those things in the background? Are you talking about like all of this stuff? Most of those are nerdy things. So this is a Mr. Potato Head that is dressed up like Darth Vader, and he's lovingly named Darth Tater. This is a Gundam model. This is Optimus Prime. This is a Gundam model. This is actually a really great picture of the Riddler that my wife painted. My favorite Batman villain is the Riddler because he's super smart. So this is a Gundam model. This little guy right here is actually, maybe Mayan, but potentially Toltec household deity. One of the few things that I have that could potentially be museum quality. This is a Gundam model. This is a Gundam model. This is a Spud Trooper, so it's basically was originally corresponding with Darth Tater up here. But this is a potato head dressed up like a stormtrooper. And then we have Gundam, Galvatron, Gundam. So, just a giant collection of nerdy stuff. You were not born yet. Lumpy, there's still a spring in your step, my friend. You click with the best of them. The one who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Very, very Starkish there, exactly. Another thing, we actually have a pretty intact tomb for Amani Torre. This is her tomb here. It's not a perfect pyramid. It's kind of this two-level affair. There's a platform, and then it gets a little bit smaller, and then goes up again. And it might have gone up again, but we don't know, to make more of a pointy thing up here. But this is in pretty good shape. So this is the tomb of Amani Torre. The intern built this one. Yeah, they didn't plan it all the way out. All right. So Amani Torre probably ruled from somewhere around the year 1-ish to probably somewhere around the year 20-ish. But again, we don't really know specifically. So, two-story walk-up brownstone grave. With the brownstone graves, you get to charge extra because they're in the good neighborhood. All right. Now, Amani Torre is one of the few rulers that we know passed rule directly from mother to daughter. This, again, is not something that happened very frequently, and I'll even say this, it's probably the only one that we know for certain. Now, there's a couple of other instances where we might guess that there was a direct pass from mother to daughter, even though there were men's names involved as princes and stuff like that. But this is probably the only one that we know with a really good one. Amani Tarakide. So, by the way, this beginning phrase, Amani, this refers to the god Amun. So, Amuni, referencing the god directly in their name. And I mentioned that Amun was a very popular god in Kush, and this is preserved in their particular names here, Amani Tarakide. There's a severe lack of assassinations in this episode. So much we've mentioned Assassin's Creed more than actual assassinations. None of these queens got assassinated that we know of. They might have, but again, unfortunately, we don't have a whole bunch of narrative information about them. I'm trying to give you what I can and feel comfortable sharing the information with a level of validity to it. I don't necessarily like going off on the weird tangent limbs that people sometimes speculate about. But it is possible here that Amani Torre directly was able to pass rule to Amani Tarakide, and we really don't know too much about her except for one particular interesting situation. She probably ruled from around the year 20 to around the year 40. Probably. But again, we don't know. So why would that particular time period be more or less important? Well, it just so happens if you are a good little Christian boy or girl and grew up reading the Bible, you will know that at one point, very soon after the crucifixion scene, one of the disciples is walking down a road and he runs across a eunuch. And they say that this guy's from Ethiopia. Now, here's the crazy thing about it. Ethiopia at that time, not an independent kingdom. Almost certainly talking about Kush, because they say that he was a servant of Queen Candace. So that's Kandake, right? And the disciple shares Jesus with this guy who's reading Semitic scrolls. And first off, I should note there's no evidence that anybody in Meroe was Jewish. If we are to take the account in the book of Acts as historical fact, we don't know where this guy got this scroll from. There are a lot of people that attempt to establish some long lost sect of Judaism this far up the Nile. It doesn't really work that way. We do know that there were groups of Jewish people that lived in Egypt and even up the Nile, but only so far as Elephantine Island is usually probably the area that we stop off, but I'm getting way deep in the weeds here. Anyway, it's probable that the particular Candace or Kantake that was being referred to in the Bible is Amani Tarakide, because she would have been ruling at the time that would have been contiguous with the account. Ethiopia, what part? 125th Street, right? You know the script of World History Part 1 by heart. Well, there we go. That's a good start. That's a good start. We do know that she had some pretty cool stuff in her tomb. Unfortunately, the contents of her tomb are also scattered to the winds and in various different museums. But this particular bracelet came from the tomb of Amani Tarakide. I always get impressed at the minute detail of the gold work here. This is just really crazy levels of detail. Really impressive stuff. I believe if I'm remembering correctly, I think this particular bracelet is now I'm not going to say because I don't remember. How are they made? Were they cast? That's a fair question, Vipers, and I don't know the answer to it. Gold is a fairly pliant and shapeable metal. So it could be that these were carved out of something like wood or stone, and they might just be gold plated. As in you hammer out the sheets of gold very, very thin, and then you overlay them and you pound them into shape. But if these are solid, they might have very well been cast, given the fact that they're fairly uniform. That would have lent a pretty good case, but I personally don't know. I'm just purely speculating right here. If there were no Jewish people, then how did the Ark of the Covenant end up hidden there? Ha ha, maybe you should do research like I have. Well, we're not in Ethiopia either, because this is Sudan. If we want to look at where Ethiopia is all the way over here. So this is Ethiopia. This is Sudan. Ethiopia, Sudan. Ethiopia, 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 Sudan. Right? Just got back. What's the casting question? The casting were these particular individual pieces of this bracelet made by casting gold? Or were they made in some other fashion? And I suggested that they might have also been originally carved out of something like bone or wood or stone and then plated with gold, but I don't know for specific. It could have been sand cast, quite possibly. Paulden's just like, dude, I made those like over the weekend. Just popped out a whole bracelet and then went back in time and planted the thing because time travel, duh. Aliens took me back. I've got a one-on-one contact with the Greys. I just phone them up and they fly me around whenever I want to go. Duh. Problem solved. It's like they're totally different countries or something. Yeah, well, What about Kenya? Kenya's even further than that. So if we throw their borders back on. This is Kenya. Kenya's way down here. Whee! So Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan. This is South Sudan. And this little area right here is still under debate. And if we zoom in right here, these borders are going to turn red pretty quick because, both both the country of Sudan and South Sudan claim this area right here. And the reason they both claim this area is because oil. And everybody wants the oil, right? Because it's going to make your country a lot of money. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the terrorist activity is going on. If you can time travel, the gold wouldn't seem very valuable. That's true, because if you can time travel, you can just make a whole bunch of money betting on horse races. What you do is you go into the future and you get a book of sports facts, and then you go back in time and you give it to yourself, and then you tell yourself to strategically put bets down on these races, and that's how you make your fortune. Or at least that's what I've been led to believe. Terrorist / American activity. Late bloomer, I would not discredit that out of hand, but I am not certain that I've even heard what I would consider viable rumors of America getting directly involved in the war in Sudan. It would not surprise me if we had not done something, and it would not surprise me if we had done something. Both ways I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. But I don't know if there have been direct speculations made that we are involved in the war. If there are, and I don't know about them, by all means, share that stuff with me, because that's probably something I need to be aware of. And they're both next to Eritrea, the only country that taxes based on citizenship other than the United States. Wow. I didn't know that, Vipers. You could also just invest that money into a moderate savings account 100 years ago. Yeah. Your grandfather has the time machine. Are you your own grandfather, though? Are you? Funnily enough, before this stream, I was talking to a musician who looks like Marty McFly, and played the Back to the Future theme on the trumpet for a hype train. Well, there you go. It's a small world. And around here, pop culture and history, they overlap, because I'm a giant freaking nerd. Anyway, what else about Amani Tarakide? That's it. That's the lot. That's about all that we have. Once again, it's not easy to parse out all of this stuff, and I wish I could give you more, but I can't. Well, I guess I could, but I would be way into the realm of speculation here. All right. Our last organized queen of the night. Everybody ready for this one? It's, I'm sorry, over here it starts. Amani Katashin. And she looks like this. Here we go. Here she is, and we see her here performing a sacrifice with one of the gods, both pouring something into this thing well here. Perhaps this is fertilizing life. So Amani Tarakide. We don't know. We just don't know anything about her. We know that she ruled about this time, and that's about all that we really know. She does have a nice hat. It looks kind of like a rook. Like she's playing chess. Maybe she's got good moves. I don't know. But anyway, here she is. So this is... I would suspect this is a bull god, which would make sense, especially given the pouring things into water. If you know a lot about the Egyptian concepts with fertility and water, that was very much tied up with bulls. And there are really important bulls that were kept as sacred incarnations, and the number of years that these bulls lived, they're all given like certain numbers, like the 14th bull or the 13th bull, or etc. And they're actually fairly good for dating a lot of stuff in Egyptian time periods, but they were directly considered to be synonymous with fertility, and abundance and virility especially. And in one of the Egyptian ceremonies, the pharaoh was expected to, and I'll be PG rated here, the pharaoh was expected to symbolically fertilize the Nile by committing a particular act of maleness into the Nile. And there were bulls involved with that, which is why I think that this particular picture that we were looking at is probably something to do with fertility, being a bull and pouring stuff in water. So there we go. That's just my guess, though. Bull god. Hey, look, Nogur, it's the god of philosophy. Dun 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 dun. What's up, Techman? So as I've missed out on the show and tell here, we have covered the connection between the Kush and the alternative names to cannabis. No, we haven't. We've just made jokes about it the whole time. If you want to throw all of the knowledge in the chat, Techman, go for it. You are welcome to. Raveland, I see that lurk. Thanks for participating. Hope you're having a good one. All right, so what about Amani Katashin? We don't know a lot. Go figure. She probably ruled sometime between the 60s and the 80s. She probably took over from either her son or her husband. She was not in the direct line that had been established a couple of groups earlier. But we do have reference for her in a particular war. So in 67, the Jewish people in the region of Jerusalem rebelled against the Romans. And the Emperor Nero made a call to all of his friends, come and help me fight these Jewish people. And Amani Katashin sent him soldiers, specifically cavalry soldiers, and either the cavalry was light cavalry armed with bows, or she also sent bowmen with the group. It's 3:38. You need to nap. Have a good sleep. Get good rest. And until next time. Oh no, you're here to learn it, not to drop it. The easiest thing that I could tell you is that this region, sort of roughly here, is where marijuana really started getting kind of popular. Is that not why you are here? JMR Killer, what's up, my friend? It's good to see you back online, man. I saw your announcement that you were bringing the gaming fort back. It made me smile. If you are not already following my friend JMR Killer, you got to go give this guy a follow. He is back. He is back and redesigned. Back and better than ever. JMR is mostly a gamer, but he has also started doing stuff like I do, which is like the plastic crack building stuff. Done some Lego stuff. Has done several models on stream. He's a great dude. Keeps up with a lot of cool stuff. He's good to talk. You gotta give this guy a follow. JMR, what were you up to? We are back. Good to see you back. How did the first stream go? What were you up to today? Tell us all of the good news. I was about to take a diversion and talk about marijuana. It's an indica strain named after the Hindu Kush mountain range of its origin. Yes, so as I was...
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! Spartacus!
JMR, thank you so much for that subscription, my friend. It is very welcome. Very welcome. So, as I was saying, basically this region right here, if you kind of draw a big oval, that's right around here. This is the original homeland of marijuana. And Kush as Vipers just particularly pointed out, does not have anything to do with this Kush, and it has everything to do with this Kush, specifically over here in this northern part of Afghanistan, right up here in these mountains. These mountains are referred to as the Hindu-Kush Mountains, and the valleys up here are where Kush originally becomes known as marijuana, but that usage is going to spread all over here, and especially in this larger Indian trade route thing that I've been talking about and hyping up for the last 2 centuries. It's going to move around quite a bit. A lot of our words that we associate with marijuana are going to have Arabic roots, like hash is from Arabic. Anyway, so it's basically this larger oval right about here. That's where all of your marijuana history is going to happen. Now, it's not here, but like this Red Sea coastline thing here. It was fun. We were playing Fortnite, got 3 wins. Hey, pretty good. Not a bad day at all. Sounds great. Have I ever done a stream on the history of drug use? I have not, but I've talked about drugs a lot. But I've never done one specifically on history of drugs. That would be an interesting one to look at. Might be too much for one stream. I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, Amani Katashin. She sends troops up to help Meroe. So we know that she was at least ruling in the year 67. Probably had been around before that. Now, after Amani Katashin, we stopped seeing a lot of women rulers in Meroe. Now, why do we stop seeing a lot of women rulers in Meroe? This is a great question. The answer is we don't know. There are vague references to some other women rulers that might have been independent. We don't really know too much about them, though. And I know that I've said that about 1,000,000 times, but this is what we're left with. Some of these are only known or speculated from even one inscription. Like we have one inscription that seems to reference a Kentucky, but again, because of the weirdness of that title, we don't know if this means that they were ruling by themselves or if they were just listed because they were an important figure. Maybe they were ruling with their husband or they were co-regent for their sons. Because of the way that the phrase works in their language, it just gets really hard to say. And also, around the turn of the century from that 1st century to the 2nd century, Rome is going to start looking a little bit different. Now, this friendship with Rome was something that they valued because they traded with Rome a lot. So this, if you'll remember the trade agreement, or the treaty that they set up with Augustus and Amanirenas, that brought a lot of trade and a lot of money into Meroe. But when Rome starts shifting and the empire starts growing, this upriver part of the Nile does not become the heartland of what they need, right? Trade starts shifting eastward, specifically to the Red Sea, but even after that, towards stuff like the Silk Road, right? And the Roman Eastern trade horizon is no longer necessarily focused on expanding Central African trade routes. And especially by the time we get to the mid 200s, which is like the 3rd century, Rome isn't going to be interested in really settling things with anybody, because Rome for about 80 years was in the midst of constant civil war. The 3rd century almost brought Rome to a complete collapse. And while all of this stuff is going on, Rome is shifting away in the 2nd century. Rome is falling apart in the 3rd century. Meroe is becoming ever more isolated, and they have bigger problems. Specifically, the kingdom of Aksum. which is spelled like this. We've talked about this a few times, but the kingdom of Aksum was down here in Ethiopia. Aksum was important because they held one side of this little strait. And if you wanted to trade up and down the Red Sea and get to connections here with the Mediterranean, you had to go past their port. And they also had the same thing that Meroe had. They had iron, they had gold, they had gemstones. And because they were directly on the coastline, they basically start horning in on all of the trade that Meroe would have had. And this is going to be kind of the death knell of the kingdom of Meroe. So there's going to be a really big war that starts around the year 300. We know that about the year 320, there was a big invasion where Aksum sent a lot of troops up into the region. And what might be kind of, I don't know, not necessarily an ironic point, but what might be kind of a denouement or a swan song, or call it whatever you want to. The last time we see the title Kentake used, it's to refer to this particular ruler named Amani Palade, who may have been ruling during this particular time, but that's the last time we see it. So there's this big invasion by Aksum. This is the last time we see the title Kentake, and then by 350, Meroe was basically taken over by Aksum. And they were allowed to kind of govern themselves a little bit, but they weren't an independent kingdom anymore. The Aksumite Empire had basically swallowed up everything in this entire Eastern African corner over here. So those are the queens of Meroe. And I know that I said we don't know and we can't be sure and probably and possibly about a bajillion times tonight. But again, that's what we've got that I felt comfortable with, and I hope that it was interesting anyway. And there are other documents and things that you can go read if you really want to dig into this. You can go do some research and find out some of the speculation and some of the hypotheses and etc. But as always, I try to give you the meat and potatoes kind of take on things, right? The queens of who knows? Well, you know, we know where they were, but we just don't know a lot about them, right? I don't want to do research. I pay you to do research. That is fair. That is fair. And this is why I always try to deliver on viewer requests, because if you all are going to hang out, I like sharing information with you all, especially the stuff that you ask about, because I can always run my mouth about stuff that I like, but it's not always that I run my mouth about stuff that you all ask for, right? But I am now wrapped up, and if you all have any questions about anything, now would be a great time to ask them. If you would like to redeem any channel points, now is a great time to do so. Otherwise, we're going to look around to find somebody to raid. What's in the news? Lots of stuff is in the news. Do you have anything specific you want me to talk about, Vipers? Or do you just want me to talk about what's in the news? Any thoughts on the rumors on Putin's health? So, there are always going to be rumors about Putin's health. Mostly because he's very isolated and people start rumors about his health. Do I think that there's something going on? Probably. Do I think it's life-threatening? I don't know. I know that every time he goes in public, they get like a bajillion doctors to go, well, he's holding his arm like this, so what that means is that he's got palsy and he's had a stroke or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Now, the most recent stuff has to do with him having to hold on to things while he's standing up, and him having these doctors secretly sneaked in to see him. And specifically, recently, I've seen some rather disturbing claims that he has been bathing in reindeer blood. Because apparently that makes you potent or virile or something. I don't know. I don't know what Putin is doing other than illegitimately invading Ukraine. I do know that he is doing that. I don't know the sexual status of the reindeer prior to them being killed for his blood, for their blood rather. I don't know. That's a fair question to ask, but I couldn't say. But it's pretty clear that he's not in the best of health. But is he like going to drop dead tomorrow? I don't know, and I honestly don't think anybody knows at this point. Anything to do with Putin is guaranteed clicks. So a lot of stuff in the media, even if it's not confirmed, they're gonna run it anyway, and they're gonna run it under the potential headline or speculation headline, and they're gonna treat it in the article like it isn't, which is something that kind of gets on my nerves. So, reindeer blood helps you prance and dash. Oh, I get you. One can hope he drops dead tomorrow. Well, I'm sure that there are people that think so. There are many that deserve death, but who are we to give it to them, right? There are many of those that have died that deserve life, but can we give it back to them? And now I'm just quoting Gandalf. So, nope. Putin bad and forget NATO. Well, there's a lot of people that think that too. All right. I see that Kyle has asked for the standard question book. Let us do the standard question book. It's a book full of questions. And I don't have the answers that they refer to, but I might have the answers in my head. We went to the very, very end last time and got some weird question. Let's try to get something at the very beginning. What are you? Let's go with like you. You're pretty close to the beginning. Right here. Yes. I think this page is a good page. You. What do you say? Let's see. What title was conferred upon Cromwell at the end of the war? So this is referring to the war between the parliamentarians and the Stuarts when all of that crazy stuff was going down. The Stuarts lost the war, and Cromwell's parliamentarian forces won the war, and then Cromwell went on to make a new government, but they weren't going to have a king. It was Lord Protector. KP is correct. Cromwell received the title Lord Protector of England, and he basically served as a kind of quasi-regent. There were a lot of powers that had been held by the king that sort of needed to still be somewhat unilaterally decided, but he gave a lot of the power back to the parliament and thus helped the people and himself. Now, his son tried to take over as Lord Protector of England, but it didn't go quite so well, and the war started back up, and the Stuarts ended up back on the throne again, with all of their massive piles of debt. And that's going to end up leading us to yet another revolution, which was kind of glorious. But that's a pun, and it's actually referring to the Glorious Revolution, because at the end of that one, nobody actually died and they didn't have to fight a war. They just walked up to the last of the, well, not the last of the Stuart, but they basically kicked the Stuart king off the throne and then put his cousins on the throne. And then they didn't last very long because they were just orange. But, you know. And now I'm just making all of the British royal family puns, because why not? That's William and Mary of Orange, by the way. They were from the Netherlands and France. Orange, by the way, was originally referred to as a region, and their banner was orange. So it wasn't the color orange originally, it was a region. And to hell we must sail for the shores of sweet Barbados, where the sugar cane grows taller than the gods we once believed in. Tobacco Island by Flogging Molly. It's a great song. You should give it a listen. Hot Tobacco Island. I love that song. Now it's stuck in my head. But that's okay, because it's a good song to get stuck in your head. All right. Other questions, comments, point redemptions, and references Cromwell several times. Yeah, absolutely. The butcher and his crown. Yep. All right. Anybody? If not, that's cool. We've been on for a couple hours, and I didn't expect this particular one to take quite so long. And I'm glad there was a lot of good interaction that I could use to pad time, because otherwise it would just been me saying I don't know a lot, which is not necessarily the best of contents for somebody that's supposed to be, claiming to be a guy that knows history. Like, I don't know. You are a body. Congratulations, Tropical Geek. I had to go get my body checked up today. Good old doctor's visit. It was not fun. We'll just leave it at that. To be fair, you did say I don't know a lot. I did, but imagine if there weren't all of those great sidetrack questions that allowed me to talk about stuff that I did know. It's literally your content to say you don't know. Noger, that's fair. Professional, I don't know. In philosophy, I'm with you. I don't know. Heck, even I could do that. Green herrings, you're welcome. Come on. If you ever want to come visit, we've got a spare bedroom, and I'll just stand in the back and whisper stuff to you, and then when they ask questions, you can go, I don't know. It was a lower percentage of the total runtime than otherwise. This is correct. I have been to France. I have not been around France. I have been basically to Paris. I have not been broadly out in France. I would love to go to France, but I've only really been to Paris. That's all I can actually claim. And that was an interesting experience, to say the least. All right. Have I been to London? I have not been to London, but I have been to France, and I have not seen anyone's underpants. Well, I mean, I guess I've seen some people's underpants, but I don't constantly go around looking for underpants. If you do a stream from Australia, you can mix it up with, I don't near. We've done a stream on Australia. We did a stream on the colonial history of Australia. Which was pretty fun, actually, and it turned out to be a really good stream. I'm very proud of that. You want to hear a France story? Okay. All right. Well, the adventure hat has been summoned. We will share our adventure hat emotes as the adventure hat has been summoned. For those of you that do not know or might be seeing this for the first time, this lovely deer is the adventure hat. And I wear it to all of the adventures that I go abroad because the sun is angry and cursed my family and my lineage forever to burn in its presence. So I wear this to keep my ears and my head and my face from basically bursting into flame upon being seen in the sunlight. It has been to 10 different countries and 3 different continents. And I love it with a love that I should not possess towards an inanimate object. You keep your adventure hat in your wallet. Well, that's a fair place to keep it, but this would be a bit hard to fold up, and I would probably end up looking like George Costanza with the giant wallet and sitting on an incline. And then it would explode, and I would end up not being able to use that receipt to return the chair that I got for Joe Mayo that I'm secretly using for myself because my back is thrown out of whack so much because of my giant wallet. But that's season 9 of Seinfeld, so, you know. Anyway, a story from France. I did used to have a Costanza wallet, and Joe Mayo sounds made up. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. So, when I was going to France, I had some friends back home that got very excited that I was going to go to France. And they said, Shane, if you're going to go to France, you've got to go by the Eiffel Tower and you've got to take a picture of you with the Eiffel Tower. And I said, all right, let's be clear here. I don't care about the Eiffel Tower. It's a big hunk of metal. I don't really care. It's not something that I'm interested in. I don't want to go see it. I've only got one day in Paris. I want to spend that time in the Louvre or at Notre Dame or at Saint Denis. I don't want to go to the Eiffel Tower. And the person that I was sharing the office with, a dear friend, just kept on like, Shane, I've never been to Paris. I want you to go to the Eiffel Tower for me so that you can see it and then you can tell me about it. Please go take a picture with the Eiffel Tower. And I finally caved and I was like, fine. But this is the picture that I took. So here's me. Here's my surly look. Here's my little hand. And there's the Eiffel Tower. It's like, look, it's the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, there you go. There it is. Are you happy? So that's probably the funniest of the French, the Paris stories that I have. 0 ducks were given that day. Correct. Photoshopped. That's probably the most emo pic of you've ever seen. You've seen some pretty horrible pictures of me. The shirt is actually a Smashing Pumpkins shirt. If you know anything about Smashing Pumpkins, that's kind of the epic Smashing Pumpkins shirt. I got that shirt not too long before I went to Paris, and I got that at a concert that my wife and KP were at. The first and only time that I've ever seen the Pumpkins, who are my favorite band. I think I'm photo edited in there. No, that was me. That was really me. Your wife and I got tickets to France in November. That's awesome, JMR. If you want to chat about cool stuff to go see, I don't want to plan your trip for you unless you want me to plan your trip for you. I can be as involved with that as you want. If you need some help planning some stuff, if you want to go see some things that are kind of off the beaten path, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help you in whatever capacity that I can, even if that capacity is just saying, I hope you have a great trip. If you don't want me to be involved, I'm not going to insert myself into your vacation, right? What's a concert? A group of people working together, but that's not what's important right now. Yeah, pretty much. At that point, it was a bunch of drunken rednecks playing in the mud. That's what the concert was, unfortunately. All right. So I hope that was a great story. I love that photo. It's one of my favorite photos of myself because it's just like, there. Here's your picture. By the way, Catherine, who was the woman that was in the office with me, loved that photo. And for a little while had even printed it out and had it tagged on the cubicle wall between us. All right. So I think that's going to be it for us today. And we are going to go do ourselves a bit of a raid. And we're going to go raid my friend Angel, who is currently streaming. Angel is a game streamer from Jolly Old, and he's a pretty good dude. I like hanging out in his chat a lot. And Moose is, of course, going to wait until literally I have the finger on the button to hit the raid to ask what's in the news, and then not specify exactly what's going on that I'm supposed to talk about. And, right, it's Angel's birthday. So, and then summon the opinion hat. Good, Moose. You wait until literally the end. All right, so what do you want to know about in the news? What's in the news? What am I supposed to talk about in the news? Oh, and then you want me to put on the opinion hat. And the opinion hat is, what would take you the most time to delay ending the stream? If somebody asked me legitimately a question that I knew deeply about and that I had a superfluous amount of information about, I will almost always answer those questions. Fortunately, opinion-wise, what would really, this is getting to the opinion part. My opinion on that is there are only a few things that would really get me fired up enough to just keep talking, even when the ending is basically upon us. And I don't necessarily want to enumerate all of those things at the moment, because what's going to end up happening is that people will have valid and reasonable questions about those things, and I'll be streaming until 10 o'clock tonight. But I'm not gonna, because my opinion is I had to wake up about 30 minutes earlier than I normally did to go to the doctor this morning, which was a rather eventful occasion. And my opinion is I don't want to stream for another hour. But I will give you some topics to bring up on future occasions that I know for a fact would get me going to the point that I would not be able to shut up. I would, eventually, Rome stuff. Rome stuff would definitely get me going, but not all Rome stuff. Really ancient migration stuff, I will always ramble about that. I love that stuff. Japanese early Edo period transition out of Muromachi period to Edo, stuff with like Nobunaga and Hideyoshi Toyotomi, Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu. I will ramble about that stuff. Places that I have been, especially places that I'm like particularly interested in. Like if somebody had legitimate questions about Göbekli Tepe, I would be all over that. And especially the stuff that we've now been discovering that's older than Göbekli Tepe or is as old as Göbekli Tepe, which another one was located about 2 weeks ago. That's as old or probably older than Göbekli Tepe. That stuff gets me going. Opinion-wise, I will almost always yell about how bad education is in America. The education system in this country is utterly borked. What other things, opinion-wise, would just get me going? Debunking some hot garbage thing that is getting traction in the world. I really like disproving garbage concepts. I really like that. Education only getting more fun now that parents can sue teachers for things that they say in class. Yeah. And in Florida, it's not even just parents. The way that the law in Florida is written is that anybody in the school district that knows about something that a teacher is teaching that goes against one of those hot garbage laws that they have passed can sue the teacher. You don't even have to have a kid in the school. How stupid is that? How stupid is that? Next month we'll be able to add Rings of Power to that list. Oh man. I don't even know. I don't even know if I'm going to watch that. I don't even know if I'm going to watch that. Just to be honest. I don't know. All right. Anyway, let's go raid. We're going to go raid Angel. He's a cool guy. Yell adventure when we get there. Throw some adventure hats in the chat. Angel's a cool dude. It's his birthday. Tell him happy birthday. And now we're just redeeming points to redeem points. Amazon gets the boys, and Moose is just spending all of the points. I will have by Thursday. I will have something for people to spend points on. Rank 3 things. Oh, crud. I don't even know what 3 things to rank. My favorite teas are chai, Earl Grey, and probably Green Dragon Well. How is that one even on? I'm going to have to give you that one back. Anyway, let's go rated. We're going to say hi to Angel. I'm actually losing my mind right now. Let's go do a raid. Thank you all, everybody. Have a good night. I'll see you on Thursday. We'll talk about Islam. It'll be a good time. See you then.